Afternoon or good evening to all of you, wherever you're joining in from. My name is Hari Srinivasan. I'm a Senior Director of Products for Prisma Cloud Compute. I'm joined by my colleagues who are product managers owning different areas. We are all happy to kind of bring in our functionality to kind of talk about what we are coming up in the upcoming releases. We have two main topics today, and let me share my screen and we'll get started from here. Dara. Okay, I can flip here. Okay, got it. Thanks. Okay, so as you know, Prisma Cloud Platform, we have four main pillars. We are talking about cloud security posture management, which most of you are using. And we also talk about the other sides of the platform, which is cloud workload protection, another big important piece to kind of secure your workloads on cloud. It contains of host, container, and serverless, and web application and API security. And Anand later is going to talk about the new addition and soon coming up to GA, identity-based microsegmentation under the cloud network security pillar. And we also have an element talking about cloud infrastructure and entitlement management, which is about IAM security. Across these four main pillars, today's conversation is focused on updates, specifically on cloud workload protection area and the cloud network security area. We are coming up very shortly with the release. These updates are pertaining to an upcoming release is going to happen shortly for cloud workload protection and the identity-based microsegmentation, introducing topics of on what's new and how you can access identity-based microsegmentation is what Anand is going to cover. We're going to break the area into few main sections, majorly on cloud workload protection and identity, and then further break it down into functional areas of utilization by workload for cloud workload protection, by container, host, serverless, and WAS, and talk about these areas. Joined by Aksa, Tomer, and Ilad from Cloud Workload Protection Product Management Team, who will actually walk you through different parts of the area. Let me hand it over to Aksa to kick it off on cloud workload protection for container security and talk about the updates coming up in the upcoming release.
Thank you, Hari. Hello, everyone. I'm Aksa Taylor, product manager from the Prisma Cloud team, focusing on compute. On the container security, we have many exciting features that we're launching as a part of Hamilton release. I will be highlighting a few of those, but apart from that, we have also made a lot of UI enhancements, filterings, and such. So to begin with, I'd like to focus on our top 4 features for container security. I'll be talking about our MITRE ATT&CK radar, Compliance Explorer enhancements, and the RBAC updates that we're doing on Compute Edition for self-hosted customers and for Enterprise Edition with the SaaS platform. And then Hari and Tomer will talk about Wildfire integration. We understand that getting audits from containers and dynamic entities like container images and containers can lead to a lot of audits with no proper direction on which ones to solve first, which ones are at more risk, or where do you begin remediating your audits, and where do you begin focusing when you're trying to remediate your audits. So keeping that in mind, we are introducing MITRE ATT&CK Explorer radar as a part of Compute Console, so that all the audits that you get from your runtime events will no longer just be because of a violation of policy or because of just a suspicious activity, but we will actually arrange them automatically against the MITRE ATT&CK techniques and frameworks so that you have intelligent information about those events, in which category they belong to, and how they can impact your overall environment. Like whether a particular audit can relate to a privilege escalation technique, whether there are maybe a credential access threat that can expose you to vulnerabilities in your environment. All those different techniques we have automatically reviewed and divided all your runtime audits to fall into all these categories. That way you can have not just an event level information, but a higher picture of how you're doing in terms of the different attacks and different exposure you have in your environment when it comes to security. You can also apply different filters on this panel, on this console, so you can see by maybe the last 7 days, or you can view it across different types of resources and different attributes, just like you apply for vulnerability results or compliance results. We're also enhancing our compliance explorer. We've heard your feedback. A lot of you told us that you would like to see your overall compliance rate or how you're doing in your entire organization, no matter where your defenders are deployed, whether you are a hybrid cloud environment like AWS, Azure, GCP, whether you are deployed in on-prem data centers, regardless of how you're deployed, where you're deployed, we want to bring a unified page and a unified view to you to show how your overall compliance, how you're doing in your overall compliance rate across your entire environment. Apart from that, you can also drill into specific standards because we're introducing the ability to view compliance rate across the industry-wide standards such as PCI, CIS benchmarks, GDPR, and such. If you still want to see the rate for specific policies that may be really important for your own organization, we will also introduce the ability to add those policies to the dashboard yourself and see how you're doing in rate for your specifically added policies. So we are hoping that this will give you a more actionable data. This will help you have an overall picture of your environment and not just related to container level or host level or resource level. And it will help you remediate and more quickly as we provide data that is more efficient for reporting purposes. We're also introducing new templates for Docker, DSSDig with our own Prisma Cloud Compute Edition, which will be coming soon. I want to talk about custom roles in different editions. To start with, I'd like to talk about what we're introducing in Compute Edition. For self-hosted Compute Console, you will have the ability to create your own roles outside of the out-of-box roles like administrator, DevSecOps, auditor that we already have in the product. So you can create a role and you can say which pages you want to give read access versus write access on this role, and then be able to assign this role, customized role to your users in Compute. So instead of depending on out-of-the-box roles or collections, now you can create your own role and decide which pages in the product you want to give customized access to based on the role. Similarly, on Enterprise Edition, we've heard your feedback about how account group assignment can be a little bit broader when you're dealing with container level dynamic resources. And so we're introducing resource list or compute access group by which you can assign users not just at the account level in the platform, but have more granular access, be able to assign based on container names, images, labels, cluster names. So essentially use the workload resource tags and labels to give access to your read-only users. And that will be available in the Enterprise Edition of the product. And with that, let me see if there are any Q&As before I hand it over to Hari. Okay, that is being answered by Hari, and all the other questions are answered. Okay, if you have any questions on any of the features that I just presented, please feel free to drop us a note at the Q&A channel or the chat functionality of Zoom. And with that, I'll hand it back over to you, Hari.
Thank you, Aksa. Let's talk about the advanced malware capabilities, and excited to bring in about wildfire integration. Tomer, over to you. Let's talk about your functionality.
So hey everyone, my name is Tomer. I'm also a product manager on the compute team. For those of you who are not yet familiar with Wildfire is the Palo Alto Network's malware analysis server, and it is capable of analyzing both files. It's capable of providing verdicts both for files that it has seen before and analyzing any new file that it hasn't seen before, both with static and dynamic analysis, and providing a verdict for that file in real time, or at least near real time capability. Up until the previous version, we had our own threat feed, which also included part of the entries that are provided by Wildfire. But starting with this release, we actually extended this capability, and we now have full integration with Wildfire, both for runtime on containers and hosts, as well as the ability to analyze files during CI/CD for container images. Basically, what what this gives is both the ability to analyze to receive a verdict for any file that Wildfire has previously seen for any customer, as well as analyze any new file that it hasn't seen before, and provide a verdict. Moving on to capabilities that we specifically added to our host protection capabilities. With the previous release, we added the ability to automatically discover all virtual machines that are running in AWS and provide an indication whether those machines are already protected by compute or not. Starting from this release, we wouldn't just scan for all the machines that are currently running, but we actually provide the means to define rules that would automatically protect any machines in AWS by installing our Defender there, as well as protecting ad hoc any unprotected resource. In addition to that, we are adding the capability to scan for all VMs in GCP and Azure in the same way that we previously supported for AWS. And of course, with our next release, we are also planning to support the same auto protection capability for GCP and Azure. For the host runtime capabilities, we actually did a complete makeover and also added a lot of capabilities. So the first change that you'd be able to see is that we've taken all the anti-malware, and anti-exploit capabilities, and we placed them all in a single tab. The next aspect is previously there were a lot of capabilities that were grouped together, and you could only control them with a single effect. Now each capability has its own effect, and you can basically decide on the effect that it would have, whether it would be disabled or just create an alert, or an actual prevention event will occur when we detect this action in runtime. In addition to that, we added new anti-malware capabilities, starting with the ability to detect any binaries that were deployed without a package. When that happens, we can basically, we would of course alert on it, and we can also prevent processes that are created from such binaries from being executed. In addition to that, we added detection for encrypted and packed binaries, which is a very common method to basically sneak in malware into workloads. Next, we added the capability to basically create an allow list that is based on a file hash, and once that is done, basically no detection capabilities will be enforced on the file that is marked as trusted. We did additional improvement on our crypto miner detection capability for a broader coverage. And lastly, we added the ability to perform analysis of files with Wildfire, which I've already mentioned before. Next, we added a new capability for anti-exploit, which is detection of usage of web shell. And we added new capabilities on the networking aspect. It is now possible to also define an allow list that is based on either IP or DNS. Lastly, for hosts, on the compliance side, we added support for additional CIS standards, starting with updated stack for CIS Linux 2.0, and also added specific support for Amazon benchmarks, including Amazon Linux 1 version 2.1 and Amazon Linux 2 version 1.0. And with that, I'm going to move over to Elad, which is going to cover our WAS capabilities.
Thank you. So, as in any of the recent releases, our awesome dev team keeps on delivering great new capabilities for WAS. So let's go ahead and highlight some of them. API observations. So WAS would observe incoming traffic, and based on it, it would create a model of all your API endpoints. And that model would include traffic statistics, HTTP methods, content type, parameters, etc. And essentially, this is very beneficial for several use cases. This is a great way to detect shadow APIs, API endpoints that you were not aware of, get a better sense of which parts of your applications are getting used. And if you don't have updated specification files at all or up-to-date ones, you can use this model. You can export it as an OpenAPI version 3 specification file, review it, and then import it back into our API protection. So awesome new capability I'm very excited for. We are further enhancing our bot protection capabilities, and customers can now integrate Google's reCAPTCHA v2 challenges and serve them either for each new session or use them as an action, essentially using CAPTCHA as an action. So whenever a suspicion of an unknown bot traffic arises, instead of immediately blocking, banning, you can serve CAPTCHA challenge and give the user a chance to prove his humanity. You can either use the checkbox or invisible challenges, and you do have control over the expiry period. So how long would a successful solution to a challenge would be valid? So all of these would be exposed to you to change in the configuration. Virtual patching. So our research team will now be able to provide you with virtual patches for 0 days, new exploit, stack-specific threats, or any other emerging threat. The new virtual patches allows us to provide such updates on an ongoing basis and not be release dependent. So even in between releases on an ongoing basis, we will be able to push those to you. Now, once a patch becomes available, you can then add it to any of your WAS policies and select the desired action. So you can set it on alert for a while. You can switch it to prevent, ban, whatever. Any action that is essentially available to you over the other firewall protections. Next one, please. Yeah, and last one, another feature I'm very excited about is WAS custom rules. So in addition to the virtual patches, as of Hamilton, WAS users will be able to create draft their own custom rules based on a very capable rule syntax with a cool autocomplete and suggestions mechanisms we developed specifically for inspecting web traffic. So you'll be able to match on incoming requests as well as server responses. Now, same as virtual patches, once a rule is created, you can then use it and add it to any of your policies, WAS policies, and choose any applicable action. Thank you.
Thank you, Lad. Thanks for that. Totally excited about WAS capabilities and custom rules in general. In specific, kind of gives the teams an opportunity to protect their application from the time when an exploit or a vulnerability is identified to the time when a patch is available, and more so importantly, when the time a change management board approves to apply particular patches across their system. So totally excited about custom role functionality. Let's talk about shift left. Shift left is an area where it kind of comprises for scan in two major parts. One is container image analysis, basically identifying vulnerabilities and compliance issues as a part of container images. The other part of it is software composition analysis. Very specifically, this applies to code repositories. Being able to shift further left, if I may, on your journey to be able to know code repositories from where the packages are pulled to be kind of built into an images. That's what we are looking at. At this point of time, we are enhancing capabilities for Git repo vulnerability scanning, which we first introduced for GitHub Cloud, but now we are expanding to all of Git and enhancing that support in Twist CLI itself. So as your developers, our DevOps team are analyzing code repositories, they can actually utilize the Twist CLI command line utility to scan a file or a folder or basically the repo directly to identify vulnerabilities and compliance issues in that. This capability provides adds on top of capabilities for container images and the runtime protection for Prisma Cloud Compute, providing you unparalleled visibility across the entire supply chain. So any kind of an SDLC attack, starting in from the left, is being identified. With Git, you can with this capability, you can scan any Git repo, not just GitHub. It can be other Git repos as well. The next part of this capability is enhancing on license compliance check. In addition to vulnerability management and detection of open source software vulnerabilities, we are also introducing compliance related checks as well. We understand that this is a requirement is primarily kind of applied by legal teams and compliance teams on top of what you use and what kind of a license packages which has been consumed as a part of your the software you're building. With this, users would be able to create a rule-based thresholds for and identify which licenses are agreeable or acceptable or tolerated in their enterprise compared to that of which is not, and being able to kind of subject your code repositories to license compliance scans. We have 20 other plus license other frameworks which are supporting. We're soon going to be supporting more and also open up for custom things. But at this point of time, it introduces capabilities which the most used license frameworks are all part of the system. We identify the packages, its license attribution, and allow you to apply rules on top of it. With these two capabilities, we are moving a leg up in terms of software composition analysis, providing you a wider coverage and a deeper functionality, in addition to the existing functionality for container image scanning, which is available with Prisma Cloud Compute Container Security Edition. Okay, so that brings us to an end of all the capabilities which we talked about for Prisma Cloud Compute. The release, there are multiple questions on the chat which actually asked about what release we are talking about. The release name is code named Hamilton. You are on 2012 or code name Galileo. We are talking about the functionality for the upcoming release. It's going to be shortly going to be dropped, and that code name is Hamilton. And all these capabilities which you just saw earlier today is all about an upcoming capabilities and in the Hamilton release. With that, let me hand it over to Anand, who's going to walk us through an exciting area for us called network security, protecting the communications within these computer workloads which you see in your environment.
Thanks, Hari. So yeah, I'm just going to start off with a little bit of a sort of an introduction to what the microsegmentation solution is, and then I'll go into some of the I guess some of the functionality that you may not sort of be familiar with. Are we able to, can we move to the next slide? Who's controlling this slide deck? Here we go. Okay, So, just a brief overview of what we do. Essentially, we are using an identity-based approach to control sort of east-west segmentation. So, regardless of where things are located, private cloud, public cloud, hybrid, multi-cloud, it doesn't make a difference to us. We're able to secure and visualize your traffic, or how your applications are communicating to ensure that you're secure from sort of this lateral movement, regardless of where things are located. And we're using identity instead of IP to essentially do this. If you can move the slide a little bit forward and kind of give you a better sense of what that is. But yeah, completely decoupling it. There's no IP, information that is required to kind of secure your applications at this point. It's just using identity that is essentially just key value pairs to secure and visualize your infrastructure. So just forward the slide to the end. Yeah, if you can, thank you. Keep going. And so we end up writing policy based on identity instead of IPs, and we use a mutual sort of authentication and authorization mechanism between the actual host. So it's not just a matter of I'm connecting to IPX; it's also a matter of this is my identity, this is your identity. Should we be able to communicate? And we're able to do this across VMs and containers, or a mixing of the two as well. Okay, next slide.
Just 1 second, Anand. We're going to do a quick switch of the screen share.
Okay. Here. Let me do this and.
Anand, I can share my screen.
Okay. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Just go to presentation and just go to the, yep, you can go past this. Yep. Yeah, and you can kind of just go to the end of this, right? So essentially, it's an agent-based implementation. So stay there. Yeah, cool. So it's an agent-based implementation, goes on a VM, it goes in Kubernetes, deals with containers, and we're able to then visualize your communication between these workloads essentially, and we're sending the information over to the Prisma SaaS platform where you can then program identity-based policies. Now it is a SaaS only implementation. The agents can actually exist anywhere, so on-prem or in a private data center, but essentially they are sending the telemetry information and the visualization and the policy management is all done in the Prisma SaaS platform. Next slide. And just go to the end of this. So essentially how people actually end up using this is again to just visualize their application flows. You may have your applications may be sort of in VM container form. They may exist across multiple cloud infrastructures, within different cloud accounts, between multiple clusters. So you can end up visualizing all that flow information, do zero trust. We have policy as code as well. So you can fit this into your CI/CD pipeline as well. And you can then, secure both VMs as well as containers and, do this across either a multi-cloud or a hybrid environment. So if you've got something that's sort of cloud-based as well as on-prem, you can use a sort of a normalized mechanism using identity that we provide, that we auto extract, that you can also define yourself to then secure, the communication of only allowing the things that should be able to communicate and making sure that those are the only things that actually can communicate. Only what's necessary to communicate can communicate. Next slide. And our identity-based policy, again, is just a matter of just essentially just a set of key value pairs that you will then define to easily human readable. Again, you can do this through UI or as policy as code. So you can fit this into your CI/CD pipeline as well. So as your applications change, if you need to change policies, you can actually do that. And it's just based on identity information that's extracted from the environment if necessary. Okay, next slide. And then, just click the end of this, go to the end of this slide. One more, perfect. So, the way that this works is, again, it is a matter of using identity rather than IP. It is piggybacked on top of the normal three-way handshake. And we will have both sides essentially, whether they're a VM or container, essentially decide whether or not the communication should occur. And if it's allowed, we get out of the way, so we don't add additional latency, and you're able to then, control what is actually talking to what, regardless of if it's what form factor it's in, whether it's a VM or container, or maybe it's a VM talking to a container. So it doesn't really make a difference. We are sort of normalize everything to this identity mechanism, and then determining what should be allowed to communicate. Okay, next slide. And so, we're in beta. We are now in a limited GA. And so it's not visible to everybody. It is sort of something that you can talk to your Prisma Cloud account team, and we will turn it on for you. Once it's on, you just, you subscribe to it, and you can use it for 30 days for free. We will actually help you and kind of white glove you through initial setup if you so desire, and then let you kind of be on your way using the microsegmentation module that's integrated as part of Prisma Cloud. Okay, next slide. A couple of things you may not have seen before, if you're familiar with the beta release, is that we've had a on top of the system admin role, there's a NetSec ops role as well, or permission group within Prisma Cloud that you can assign. So you can now take a NetSec ops permission group and assign it to a set of different account groups, and so you can within the microsegmentation module, you can then control, whether a role has, read write or read only access into specific cloud accounts. Okay, next slide. And we also have introduced an RQL integration. So we have flow records. So, from your VMs and containers, you have a set of flow information that is that's available. What we've done with this information is now made it available into the investigate page as well. And what you'll be able to do is now use RQL to actually be able to parse the DNS logs as well as the flow records as well. So the flow records will have identity information as well as IP information, and you can structure queries in RQL to be able to look at those records. All right. And one of the other features that we've actually introduced as well is sort of a centralized upgrade mechanism as well for the enforcer. That is actually our agent that's sitting on the VMs or in the containerized environments. And so what we're able to do with this centralized upgrade now is once the agent is installed, you have an ability to upgrade the agent or roll back the agent. If you're doing auto scaling groups as well, for example, with VMs, you can ensure that, as they come up, they can actually automatically get, the version that you want them to be running on with the agent. And these upgrades that we have available are also, they can be, triggered either from the UI, which is what I'm showing you here, or through our APIs. Okay, Q&A. I will turn it over now for anybody that's got the question and answer based on anything we've sort of presented.
Great, thanks, Anand. I don't think we have the ability to unmute at this time, but if you do have questions, please post them in the Q&A window. That is icon with the two bubbles as opposed to the chat. The Q&A will allow other attendees to view your question as well as the answer. So please continue to bring those questions in. Thank you. And Aksa, Hari, and team, if you also would like to maybe just answer the questions verbally, since we do have a few minutes here, we can do that as well.
Sure, Dara. Ila, do you want to take this one about the API gateway, which is on the Q&A section?
I'm not seeing that for some reason. So if you can iterate the question for me, that would be awesome. Thank you.
So the customer is using API gateway today to do VAS, and they're asking about our advantage of adding VAS along with that of API gateway or replacement of it.
So API gateways have a lot of capabilities, regardless of security, around token management, API monetization, and et cetera, et cetera. but they don't usually do a very good job at inspecting HTTP traffic, because that's not their primary focus or goal. What you can do is combine WAS with API gateway. WAS would be deployed on your back end workloads and protecting those workloads on the back end. And again, traffic would get to that API security, it would get inspected, maybe modified, whatever the API gateway is designed to do. And then it would be forwarded to those backend workloads and inspected by WAS, because at the end of the day, those are the workloads you're actually trying to protect the backend servers of that API or what have you. So hopefully that answers the question.
Thank you, Vlad.
Okay, so again, please continue to put your questions here in the Q&A, and our team will continue to answer them.
Yeah, I see some questions here as well. Is there a plan to unify the agents? Not today. I think there's they're separate agents for now. I think we've got some feedback, and that was somewhat was sort of the preferred from some existing customers to sort of keep them separate. So that may change in the future, but for today they are separate agents.
Yeah, if you have time and if people are listening and looking into it, if you have opinions on like your favorite feature which you heard so far today or something else, please do let us know about that as well. We'll be happy to kind of see some of those interesting capabilities which you're looking forward for from whatever is presented today in the chat. And this is like a new way of interacting. It looks like it's like another level of abstraction from Zoom. Thanks for that text-based information. Okay, great. Dara, no other question? Maybe I can take last couple of them.
Yeah, there are a few more.
Yeah, yes, all the presentation would be shared, that you would get access to the details, and Dara would kind of mention you more. The docs would all, Stephen, you had a question about software composition analysis capabilities. As we kind of roll out with an upcoming release, the documentation would actually reflect the updated capability set and actually talk about all those code repository scanning coverage as well as compliance functionality as a part of SCA in detail. There was a question about unified events for both infrastructure and workload event. Aksa is answering. Maybe Aksa, do you want to answer it live?
Sure, yeah. So I'm assuming you're talking about the CSPM and the CWP functionality when you say infrastructure and workload events. Since the nature of services versus workloads is very different in terms of how many audits you get in each one and how the alerts are structured, we are thinking of ways of aligning them in future, but it will take more time to get to that end goal just because of the difference in architecture. However, it is in our vision to do it at some point in the future.
Okay, thank you, Aksa. Dara, back to you.
Perfect. So it does look like we do have a few more questions here. Hari, if you don't mind. One question that looks like it's been here is, what features related to Fargate deployments will the Hamilton release provide? So Aksa, it looks like you're going to go ahead and take this one live.
Yeah, that is actually a very good question, because there are so many other improvements in this Hamilton release, and one of it is related to Fargate deployments. With the Fargate Task Defender, you will now be able to scan your images in the Fargate tasks in addition to doing runtime capabilities with the Defender. So as soon as the Defender is embedded in your task definition and you deploy it, it will be able to scan for images in your task definition, scan them for vulnerabilities and compliance. You will also be able to apply custom compliance policies for Fargate tasks. So that will be available to you in the Hamilton release.
Thanks, Aksa. And then it looks like the only outstanding question we have here is, what level does the PCI feature provide? What level of PCI does it address? And I'm not sure.
Yeah, I can take that up. So we have compliance evaluation or assessment for PCI standards. PCI DSS 3, it is well supported within the product with using the controls which we map back to PCI. So for your PCI environments, you have capabilities to check for compliance for PCI, and specifically on the host related areas. If your PCI mandate also talks about file integrity monitoring, you also have capability to support file integrity monitoring for host security under the host security area to satisfy your PCI requirements. And of course, PCI requirements as a broad brush, which actually kind of talks about network access to vulnerability management to other areas as well. As you saw, the entire product solution suite actually broadly answers PCI capabilities as well.
Perfect. Thank you, Hari. So if you still have some more questions, please post them in the Q&A. It looks like one anonymous attendee asked, what is the credit cost of each enforcer? And I think this would be a better conversation to have with your account rep or your sales rep. So please reach out to your sales rep on that question. We also have another question here. Can you talk about the customer feature request process and progress? So Aksa or Hari, I'm not sure if you want to take this one or if this one might be best answered by an account or customer success rep.
Yeah, I can just add a little bit more texture to it.
Sure.
We really welcome your feedback and your requests. So reach out, like there is a forum to kind of reach out to, either using AHA, which you have access to, or raise your service ticket, and we would classify that as a feature request and kind of work through the process. We release every 4 months, if not a quarter, and all of the major feature requests are actually kind of updated as we kind of follow through. So post your feature request as a part of your support process. And if you have more questions, and reach out to your support team and ask them for further conversation with the product team if there is a lot more detail involved. We will be more than happy to support it. Thank you, Rich. Thanks for the question.
Okay, it looks like we've got one more question. It looks like it's kind of covered in 3 different bullet points. So team, I don't know if this might be better off, addressed offline with these 3 bullet points, but I think Asif, we could probably connect with your account rep and get these answered for you. Unless Aksa, you have something to add to this.
I was just gonna say the same, that I know I answered this before to open an email or a customer support, but it seems like the account rep referred you to this session. However, just to make sure that we are on the same page with what OS you're using, what environment, and why we're not getting metadata, because we do have some tags that we pull from the cloud provider for VM tags and such. So we'll just need to learn a little bit more on why you're not seeing this in your environment, and if there is a version, maybe a specific version that we're missing on, or a specific host OS or such, then we can look deeper into it, but we'd like to take this offline.
Perfect. Well, team, if there aren't any other questions here, appreciate you taking the time to join today's office hours with product management session. This is a monthly series, so you will be getting a link to the recording, which will take you to our live community. Do want to let you know that you could actually subscribe to our live community to get updates on upcoming monthly webinars, and we hope you can join us next month. Thank you everyone for the time, and thanks to the product management team for hosting this wonderful webinar. Have a great rest of your day, and enjoy the rest of your week as well. We'll see you next time. Thanks, everyone.